I often wonder what my younger self as a kid would think looking at the life I live now. She'd probably be surprised I chose the bicycle, but not the travel. That part would make perfect sense to her. Even back then, I was already seeking the freedom to choose. Not freedom as a concept, but the power to decide and shape my own path. It's a privilege I'm lucky to have, but one I don't take for granted. For as long as I can remember, it's felt like something I needed, not just wanted. This solo trip in northern Vietnam felt like a return to that. Something I'd owed myself for a long time.
Unfortunately, I just got my first flat. I'm using tubeless, but I think I went through something very sharp because there's a cut of 1 centimeter and I started losing a lot of air. So I just quickly stopped. And this time, because I'm using a tubeless setup, I have my EDC1 100cc pump, which comes with this one here. And I just injected it into the hole and I think it's keeping up. I'm just gonna pump the tire now and see if the sealant can close it up.
I definitely didn't plan for this, but I felt proud fixing a flat tire on my own for the first time. And since I'd brought a tubeless setup, it was easier than expected.
Okay, I think that worked, but I'm gonna roll, make sure the sealant gets into the holes. I like these bacon strips.
It was also my first day riding a section of the famous Hajan loop.
Wow.
Since I started early, I had the road mostly to myself for a few hours. But just as I sat down by the side of the road to take in the view of Tucson Canyon, the inevitable happened. Bye-bye solitude, peace, and quiet. Who would have guessed that the hardest part of riding the Hajan mountains wouldn't be the long, endless climbs, but the constant buzz of motorbike tourists speeding past me one after another. I guess I'd been a bit spoiled during the first weeks, being often alone and practically the only foreigner on the road. But I could definitely see why people come all the way here. Much of this landscape lies within a geological park, famous for its dramatic limestone formations typical of northern Vietnam, which is also covered with sharp, jagged, volcanic rocks that give the terrain a rough, weathered look. But really, the views aren't the only great things here. The biggest reward was the many spots there are to stop for a drink or some food along the way. This is where I first discovered iced coconut cream coffee, and it quickly became my weakness on the trip. It's even better when it's salted. The north of Vietnam holds a history marked by decades of conflict, most notably the war against French colonialism and later the American War. The mountainous regions were often battlegrounds, and many of the ethnic minorities settled here were drawn into the conflicts and later towards the government's policies, which have eroded their autonomy both politically and culturally. There are many different ethnic minority groups in the north, each culturally distinct, with their own language, traditions, and often colorful clothing. Some of the largest are the Hmong, Thai, Dao, and Nung. For many families, tourism has brought new income and opportunities, but I also noticed a shift in how locals interacted with me. There were fewer smiles, less eye contact, and a more transactional or distant feeling, almost a sense of discontent. I found myself wondering why. Was it simply the sheer volume of tourists passing through? From the outside, these motorbike tours can feel overwhelming. Big, loud groups speeding past in both directions every day, over and over again.
Because that keeps going on, all the groups. They're nice, they're always cheering, but oof, it's so loud.
While tourism does bring new jobs and economic benefits, it also creates disparities between those who benefit and those who don't. Yet everyone still has to live with the noise and disruption. Hajan was undeniably beautiful, but I couldn't shake this bittersweet feeling that something was off. It made me reflect on the complex and often fragile relationship between visitors and the communities we pass through. A situation that goes beyond the surface and one I'd be keeping a close eye on. That was fun to witness. I cycled past the small town and figured it was a good moment to look for a place to eat before the next long pass. At first glance, it looked like there were plenty of options, but once I got a closer look, I realized they were all cafes and none of them served food. Well, except for one girl on the street. Eventually, someone pointed me towards the one actual restaurant in town, just up the road, so I headed there to try my luck.
Too bad, that didn't work. They don't have food today, apparently. And they pointed that way, but that way is the pass, so I don't think I'm gonna find any food there. There's some cafes, so maybe I'll go for that. Otherwise, I have an emergency boiled egg and 2 carrots, which I think can make me get somewhere to the top. Emergency meal. This is gonna get me up the pass. Tonight, I'll have a proper meal at the homestay.
After almost 3 weeks on the road, I've noticed how hardworking Vietnamese people are. I rarely see anyone just hanging around. Men, women, and kids always seem busy. Working in the fields, cleaning, driving, selling, building, running restaurants and shops, or simply helping around the house. There's a strong sense of responsibility toward family and community, especially in rural areas where resources are limited and people make the most of what they have.
I took a side road today, so I think I've managed to dodge the groups. It's very quiet, it's finally fresh, and of course, I'm still climbing. But I really prefer it like this, than with all the traffic. Doggy on a chain.
Riding through this living environment with no other distractions allows me to notice those details. That's the best part of traveling silently and slowly. You start to see the small things that would otherwise go unnoticed.
I'm getting close to the top, I think. It's getting quite steep. I've climbed already 700 meters in 13 kilometers, so let's survive today.
Another pass kicked off, which meant just one more to go before reaching the city of Hajan, the gateway out of the mountains. Since I'd been pacing myself relatively well and taking rest days along the way, my body felt completely fine. Tired, of course, but not in pain. I looked for a place to eat just by the road. It's funny how on a bikepacking trip, I feel okay with so many things I wouldn't normally do at home. For example, eating cold rice and omelette leftovers from the night before, straight out of a tupper. But somehow, when you're on the bike and really hungry, it actually tastes pretty good. Just as I was deep in thought, I suddenly heard the sound of spinning bike wheels. Eva and Timo, two cyclists from Switzerland, rolled over the pass and we exchanged a few words. They had just started their bike trip a few days earlier and were planning to head into Laos and China. We were all heading the same way towards Hajan, so we said goodbye and planned to meet again in the city in a day or two. They were riding a bit faster than I was.
It is so cold today. Last week I was so warm, this week I'm so cold. Time to descend though.
I had been looking forward to this moment for a while. I imagined there must be other cyclists out here roaming around northern Vietnam, but I hadn't crossed paths with any until now. It's always refreshing to share stories with fellow bike travelers and swap tips. There's an instant connection, even in just a few minutes. It had taken me a week to cross the region of Hajan, quite a milestone for me. I knew that once I reached the city, the toughest and most intimidating stretch of the journey would be behind me. I began making a mental list of all the things I wanted to do once I got there. Simple indulgences that mean everything to a bikepacker. A washing machine, a hot shower, a soft bed. But for me it was also chocolate I was craving, and a full day off, just laying around, phone in hand, calmly catching up with friends and family. Before I knew it, I had made it into Hajan.
My guest house should be somewhere here.
Some other cyclists had recommended it, so I went straight there. 4 cats ran the place, charging guests in pettings. When I arrived, there was a great mix of guests and volunteers, and I clicked with them right away.
Like this.
Dewey, my host, showed me to the private room and, yeah, time to get comfortable.
Okay, I need to do some planning.
The plan was to take a couple of days off here to look ahead at the next section and catch up on some chores. My next goal was the well-known town of Sappa, but then I saw this price list seductively sitting on my bedside table, and I started feeling the temptation to skip yet another stretch. Why? Honestly, just because I could, and I'd rather skip a duller section to get to the next real highlight. By lunchtime, I got a text from Eva, so we met up and ended up at a Chinese barbecue restaurant. A first for me. Food in Vietnam is generally meant to be shared, so traveling solo means you often miss out on trying a variety of dishes and on the communal experience that really defines the cuisine. I was glad to have company this time and to hear more about their riding plans. One day, I'd also love to travel in China. There isn't all that much to do in Hajan town, culturally speaking, but I got a tip about a quiet Buddhist temple nearby. I had never visited one before, so I figured I'd check it out. Kwan Am Pagoda is a hidden sanctuary nestled gently among the hills, dedicated to the Bodhisattva of compassion, a gentle guardian believed to hear the silent cries of the world. Vietnam isn't strongly tied to a single religion, but superstition, spiritual rituals, and personal beliefs flow through daily life. At temples like this, visitors light incense, offer small gifts, and sit in stillness, inviting a moment of peace and reflection. Like any sacred space, there's a deep stillness that seems to settle inside of you, and though I didn't fully understand the symbolism around me, I found it quietly captivating. After a while, I stepped back outside, back into reality, carrying with me a quiet calm I hadn't realized I needed. The gang at Lazy Cat Homestay was awesome.
And we have a picture all together. Oh my god.
Both nights, Dewey invited us to join his family for dinner, and what a feast that was. On the second night, I got to try my first hot pot, a simmering pot of broth where everyone adds their own ingredients: meat, seafood, tofu, mushrooms, noodles, vegetables. We laughed a lot trying to guess what half of the things floating in the pot even were. It was such a fun and wholesome way to share a meal. These are the kind of moments that, to me, make travel so rewarding. After dinner, we took a taxi to Hajan's best-known viewpoint, where you can have a drink overlooking the city. Not that we saw much in the dark, but it didn't matter. What I enjoyed most was hearing everyone's stories. Why they were there, where they were headed. It's always fascinating how paths grow so briefly in places like this, yet it can feel like you've known each other for longer than a night. That short break from the rhythm of my bike trip was exactly what I needed to reset for the road ahead.
Okay. Hello. Yay. Thank you.
Bus connections between Hajan and Sappa are pretty common, and dropping off my bike in the luggage area wasn't a problem at all. In just 6 hours, I could reach the next big town, skipping a few hundred kilometers of less inspiring terrain, and probably avoiding a few surprise showers along the way. I assembled my bike upon arrival, always funny when I get an audience, and pedal off to my accommodation. I planned to only spend the night in the city, as it's a popular tourist hub and not quite the kind of place I'd like to linger in for too long. The town felt busy, with rows of souvenir stalls and sellers eagerly trying to offer you a good deal on just about anything. So I kept the visit short, had a good meal, restocked on groceries, and went to bed early. Ironically, it's the most visited places that I usually try to pass through the quickest. The next morning, I pedaled off early as the clouds began to lift, with a clear mission in mind: to visit the one tourist attraction I wanted to see before the crowds arrived. Just a few kilometers away from Sappa lies Katkat, a once traditional Hmong settlement now turned into a kind of open-air stage. What used to be a quiet community has been reshaped into a curated experience, with ticket booths and a designated walking route guiding you past the main photo spots. Still, it was beautiful to see while it was relatively quiet. The village is nestled into a steep valley surrounded by lush green hills, with a small river running along the bottom, crossed by wooden footbridges and flanked by towering bamboo stems. It was fun to watch visitors dress up in traditional ethnic clothing and pose in front of the old houses and waterfalls. The garments were incredibly detailed, with beautiful hand-embroidered patterns, and many of the women had put a lot of care into their hair and makeup, turning the moment into a full-on photo shoot. I kept walking around, taking in all the little details. Traditional Hmong houses are built from wood, with dark tiled roofs and packed earth floors. In the past, families lived here, growing rice, raising animals, and weaving hemp into fabric using natural dyes and hand embroidery techniques passed down through generations. Many of these traditions still exist in natural areas. Still, Katkat serves as a performative representation for those who want to learn more about the Hmong culture through its customs and crafts, in a way that it's easily accessible for everyone. Places like these matter because they help preserve and share traditions that might otherwise fade, especially as modernization and tourism reshape life in these remote regions. Katkat offers visitors a window into the history and lifestyle of the Hmong people, keeping their stories alive in a rapidly changing world. For me, it became a gentle introduction to what I was about to experience more closely in a few hours.
I just got out of the region of Sappa and of Tamban, said goodbye to all the tourists, and it's an inflection point because I'm on my way back to Hanoi. So I feel a little bit different since I know that I'm just heading back, so this is gonna come to an ending. Therefore, I think I'm way more optimistic and trying to savor everything in my day much more, starting with this amazing ride through the rice fields. So it's gonna be a couple of weeks still until I make it to Hanoi, but I'm very much looking forward to just taking in everything about the landscape, the people, the culture, and the food.
This was easily becoming my favorite day on the bike so far. My riding style has changed a lot over the years. These days I usually prefer pedaling off-road, away from traffic. But finding quiet, good condition tracks in Vietnam isn't that easy.
I was supposed to be doing this track climbing, and it's like a 25% at least, so I'm very happy I changed my plans and now it's descending. Whew.
I'd been missing that sense of adventure and wilderness, but this path through the terraced rice fields brought some of it back. Narrow, winding, and just demanding enough to keep things interesting. It reminded me why I enjoy riding this way. What I loved most, though, was how it felt like a corridor, gliding between tiny villages where I could, in real life, pedal past some of the ethnic communities I'd only learned about back in Katkat. I was looking for a quick spot to have lunch when I noticed this building. I parked my bike, pulled out my Tupperware with leftovers from the night before, and asked a girl passing by if it was okay to sit on one of the stools to eat. She shyly started speaking to me in broken English, asking curious questions and telling me about her life and the rice fields nearby.
September. Yes, September the rice field become golden. Yes.
Oh.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
July the tourist green. Yes.
Yeah, it's video. So I can say hello.
She told me she learned to speak some English from tourists passing by, like me. Her name was Din.
Hello.
We took a photo together, and then she asked if I wanted to come down to the village to visit her family. So I followed her. Two of her kids were at school, but I got introduced to her toddler as well as her husband, grandmother, and mother-in-law. I took out my last package of Oreos and shared it with them. I had the feeling it wasn't something they usually had access to, so it was wholesome to see how much they enjoyed it, especially her. Din showed me around the house, which was made up of 3 open rooms. a kitchen and living area, and a sleeping space. It felt so special to be invited into their home like that. Again, a random stranger she'd only crossed paths with on the road. A big bubbling pot was on the fire, probably cooking slow to feed the whole family for a couple of meals. Then we sat outside and had some tea together while we kept on talking about our families, my life back home, and her experience with growing tourism in the area. Although she knew how to do handicrafts and sold them as souvenirs to make an income, they mostly relied on their land for their livelihood.
You can come here. You try harvesting the rice week.
Okay, one week.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, it was moving to see how she managed the household, cared for her children, and still worked the fields. I could only admire her, especially because she did all of that with a smile on her face. She spoke about her life and her rice fields with a quiet joy and a sense of peace.
You put the rice already?
Yeah. This is my terrace.
And now you need to wait until September?
Yeah.
It's something I've been reflecting on throughout this trip. How simplicity, when rooted in purpose and connection, can feel so whole.
Konyok kumong. No? Konyok kumong. I'm gonna go to Taban now. Konyok kumong. So, wow, that was a really amazing experience. Now I need to push my bike.
There's such a delicate line between documenting an experience and fully living it. Only a small part, maybe 20%, of the most meaningful moments I have on the road ever make it onto the camera. Some are too fleeting, others I simply want to be present for without a lens in the way.
Little muddy stretch.
Ironically though, the camera often becomes a conversation starter. People approach me out of curiosity, and that naturally opens the door to talk about what I'm doing. If it feels like the right moment, I'll ask if they'd like a portrait taken, or if they're comfortable being filmed for my video. This footage feels like the most precious souvenir I could bring home. Glimpses of real encounters I get to revisit again and again, hopefully for a lifetime. That evening, I landed at the most welcoming and peaceful homestay run by B, who had left her busy life in Ho Chi Minh City with her daughter Ginny in search of a quieter, more natural environment. She took over this guest house in Tavan and cared for it with quiet dedication and great love. After weeks on the road, arriving somewhere that feels like home is the best gift one could possibly wish for. Long-term travel, especially by bicycle since it's so physically and mentally demanding, can really wear you down over time. So finding a place where you can fully disconnect and relax is such a relief. Though I had only planned to stay one night, I ended up staying two. I took a rest day to wash clothes, catch up on calls, do a bit of editing and simply hang around with them. By this point, I had come to realize that writing days were just as valuable to me as rest days, because these breaks gave me time to process everything I had seen and experienced. They also allowed me to explore nearby places and food, or slowly connect with the people around me. As I approached the 1-month mark on the road, I reached the final turning point of the journey. From here on, my direction would shift southeast towards Hanoi, the last leg of my trip. A wave of nostalgia crept in, knowing that many of the moments ahead would be the last. So I made a conscious choice to savor them as fully as possible.